Free Palestine is one of the most well-known slogans in the world. It's catchy, it's everywhere, but it is also a terrible idea. Let's dive in, because there are so many good reasons why it is better not to free Palestine. Reason number one, we will get to politics and history soon, but let's start with what matters: women's rights. When you look at the world, do you think the world needs one more country where men are allowed to beat their wives? In the Palestinian Authority, men are allowed to beat their wives. A few months ago, I made a video where I showed clips from Palestinian TV in which officials say it is allowed to hit your wife. Of course, there are limits, not too hard and not on the face, so you don't mess up her looks. Sick, right? Where are all the women who support Free Palestine? Where are all the feminists? A few months before the war, Hamas passed a law that says a woman cannot leave the house without permission from the men in her family: her husband, her father, her brother. I believe you can learn a great deal about our society by observing how it treats women. But maybe that's just me. The official position of Ireland is that the world needs another country where women are men's property. The Guinness must have gone to their heads. Reason number two, and it is the same style, so I will make it short: LGBTQ rights. Out of the 20 worst countries to be gay in the world, 17 are Muslim. Why do you want there to be 18 Muslim countries on that list? I don't understand why countries in Western Europe support the creation of yet another country that puts gays in prison, if you're lucky. Reason number three, free Palestine. We will talk about Palestine in a second, but let's start with the free. What is free in the Arab Muslim world? Where do you see freedom in the Arab Muslim world? Democracy, human rights, where does that exist? In Yemen, Afghanistan, Egypt, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Syria? Free Palestine is Western wishful thinking. It's a fantasy dreamed up by people who don't know the Muslim world. Reason number four, and this one will really surprise you: the Palestinian people are actually a colonial project. You are probably asking, how can that be? Let's start with the name. The name Palestine is not Arabic. It was given to the region by the Roman Empire, which conquered Judea. The Romans gave this name to the area to punish the Jews after they revolted. European countries that came out of Roman culture kept calling the area Palestine. So on European maps, you can see the name Palestine, but the local Arabs didn't use it. Before the British came to the region after World War I, the Ottomans, who were Muslims, had ruled the land for 400 years. They didn't use the name either. They used Vilayat of Damascus and Vilayet of Beirut. So even the Arabs who lived here didn't call themselves Palestinians. The name Palestine was primarily used in Europe. And it is not just the name that has its roots in a colonial project. It is also the borders of the area. Why is an Arab born in Acre called Palestinian, while an Arab born in Beirut is Lebanese? I will tell you. Because the British and the French drew a line on the map between them. In this way, the Palestinians adopted the colonial name given to the area by the Roman Empire and the colonial borders given by the British Empire. You can say, even if the Palestinians didn't exist as a people, and even if they want to build a country where women are property and gay are thrown in jail, that's their right. You can say that you are willing to throw away all your values just so the Palestinians can have a country. But here is something that might surprise you. Reason number five. The Palestinians don't want a state. Sounds strange? First of all, they said no to every offer of a state. In 1937, in 1947, from 1949 to 1967, they had 19 full years to build a country when they were under Jordanian and Egyptian rule. Why didn't they do it? Even in 1994, 2000, 2008, they could have built a state. Every time they said no. So what do they want? In 1947, when Britain gave up the mandate, before the partition, before the war the Arabs started, before the Nakba, British Foreign Minister Ernst Beving, who was a big opponent of Zionism, said, "His Majesty's government has thus been faced with an irreconcilable conflict of principles. For the Jews, the essential point of principle is the creation of a sovereign Jewish state. For the Arabs, the essential point of principle is to resist to the last the establishment of Jewish sovereignty in any part of Palestine." The main thing for the Arabs wasn't their own state, it was preventing a Jewish state. 30 years later, Zohir Mohsen, a senior PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization official, said, "The Palestinian people do not exist. The creation of a Palestinian state is only a means for continuing our struggle against the state of Israel for our Arab unity. In reality today, there is no difference between Jordanians, Palestinians, Syrians, and Lebanese. Only for political and tactical reasons do we speak today about the existence of a Palestinian people." Interesting. Now, those are just quotes. I think they are important, but you can always find a quote that fits what you believe. So here is an interesting fact. All surveys show that Hamas is by far the most popular party among Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. And in the Hamas charter, the phrase Palestinian state doesn't appear. Interesting, right? The word Islam appears 130 times. So do words death and kill in Article 7 and 8. The day of judgment would not come until the Muslims fight and kill the Jews. The Quran's its constitution, jihad its path, and death for the sake of Allah is the loftiest of its wishes. That's not a slip of the tongue. That's the foundation. Instead of falling in love with the lovely voices in your head, liberation, free Palestine, listen to the other side. Listen to them. The day of judgment would not come until the Muslims kill all the Jews. And death for the sake of Allah is the loftiest of its wishes. And to these people you want to give a state? And that brings us to the sixth reason why Free Palestine is a bad idea. Free Palestine is code. Actually, it is not even code anymore. It's pretty open. It means the destruction of Israel. I know some people are deeply bothered by the very existence of the State of Israel. And that will be the final reason we will get to in just a minute. But in a world with dozens of countries that have crosses on their flags and 50 giant Muslim countries, there is room for one tiny Jewish state. By the way, it is interesting to measure Israel's contribution to humanity, to the world, in irrigation systems, water desalination, agriculture, technology. Apparently, in some circles today, playing the victim is valued more than actually contributing to society. Like victimhood is the new virtue. But in terms of contribution to the world, in every field, how can I phrase this gently without offending those who are easily upset by reality? Israel has contributed a little bit more to the world than all the countries around it. There is room in the world for one tiny Jewish state. And if Palestine is freed from Jews, it won't make the world a better place. The final reason has less to do with Israel or Palestine or history and more to do with you, the people shouting Free Palestine without really knowing what they're saying. You're not really pro-Palestinian, you're just anti-Israel. And yes, that sits on deep, repressed anti-Semitism. Or maybe not so deep, not so repressed. I know you don't think of yourself as anti-Semitic, of course not. So let me ask you this. What is it about the Palestinians that gets you marching in the streets? What makes you obsessed with this issue? Even in countries far away like Australia and Canada, there have been massive protests against Israel. supposedly in support of Palestinians. Jewish businesses and institutions are attacked. Jews are afraid to wear identifying symbols on the street, afraid to speak Hebrew. Same thing in Western Europe. Why? As far as I can tell, no one in Sydney is flooding the streets over China. You know, the massive dictatorship right next door. No loud protests for the Tibetans. No outrage for the Muslims rotting in China labor and re-education camps. Interesting how concern for Muslims appears only when it involves the Jewish state. And Yemen? Who cares about the brutal civil war? I haven't seen massive protests for Kurdish independence either. The Kurds, they are an actual ancient nation that got betrayed by colonial powers. Still, no one seems to care. I could go on. What Muslims are doing right now to the Druze in Syria is horrific. I think my next video will be about that. But you can't blame the Jews for that, so in Sydney or Vancouver, no one will protest for them. And Piers Morgan's won't mention it. Think I'm wrong? Offer another explanation in the comments. As long as Palestine isn't free, Israel still has free speech. Share this video with friends who got confused and want to free Palestine. And good news, I've got more channels in other languages. So follow me there to help spread my content further.
In diesem Video geht es eine sehr seltsame Verbindung zwischen der arabischen Welt und Teilen der Linken. A diferencia de en Europa, los judíos gozaban de los mismos derechos que los musulmanes en los países.
It is not perfect yet, but you have to start somewhere. All eyes on the Jews, free Kurdistan, yalla bye.